There's a strong appetite in New Zealand, as far as what you've written and what we can see from Australia, to undo some of the radically divisive and racially segregation politics that's been going on, including things like the totally nonsensical diversity for the sake of it ideas, like renaming government departments with fabricated words and the race-based three waters. I mean, even that made it to Australia and we went, what are you guys up to? That's crazy. Surely this petulant activism is going to make people even more keen to sweep away this stuff, because that's the reason they voted for the new government. They were tired of all of this. So drumming up all this nonsense doesn't seem to be a good idea for the left.
No, I think New Zealand and Australia share a very similar attitude of being egalitarian, that when we came here initially, in the colonial days, is this idea of no class system, no class distinctions, and no distinctions of any kind, that we want things to be egalitarian and free. So when you start to impose these kind of contrived ideas of co-governance or, shifting the language too much and that kind of thing, it grates against those egalitarian ideals that are quite fundamental and intrinsic on both sides of the Tasman, I think.
Well, in your article, you wrote that this is all circulating around the Waitangi Day, which is meant to be the boiling point. Do you have any predictions for us about what you're heading towards, what the significance is, and if you think it'll all be over and done with by then, or is it going to be a real uphill battle for the new government?
Well, I mean, Maoridom is traditionally aligned with Labour, but then you've had this rise of a kind of ethno-national kind of national Maori parties, which is kind of severed away from that. So Waitangi Day is always a mess. It's a shame, it's our national day, but it's always defined not by any kind of particular violence or aggression or hostility, but just by some kind of farce. Somebody makes a stupid speech or someone goes on a walkabout and they get shoved around and something like that. And we've never quite been able to sort it out and, get the PR side of it correct. So it's always a hassle and always a drag. And the only good redeeming feature of it is that it happens in the middle of summer when people don't necessarily have to be paying too much attention, or there's not too many consequences for it. So yeah, I don't think on either side of the ditch, neither of us really seem to have our National Day quite sorted, at least at the moment.
Yeah, well, our National Day used to be fabulous. When I was growing up, Australia Day was great. I mean, there was always that really irritating, tiny little patch of activism for the sake of it, but they were almost non-existent, or no one cared about them for a very long period of time. It's only this new Marxist push in schools. We've now got kids who believe quite literally anything, including a random coming apocalypse, which never seems to arrive. But, New Zealand's such a beautiful country, and it used to be quite laid back like Australia. Are you looking forward to perhaps a new era of politics where you can get on with running the country and go back to New Zealand on the world stage as it was before, as a place of beauty and natural wonder and political liberty?
I think so. I think the engine of that, as it normally tends to be, is economics. I think people have it's been almost half a decade now where people feel they've been on the back foot. They haven't really been able to come up for air, financially. And that creates stresses and tensions, and often they can, exude out into the wider kind of social discourse. So if we have just a couple of years where people can get their head above water and get their finances sorted and that kind of thing, then that can often flow through into cultural issues, which can suddenly seem less consequential to people. So I think people are just kind of primed a little bit for just some quiet times. I think people have had enough, like the old Chinese curse, you're cursed to live in interesting times. And I think we've been living in interesting times for too long.